Well, I think we'll get started right away, as there's always so much delay. Hello and welcome, all of you, to my talk on how to design a decent user interface.
Please speak closer to the microphone, we don't hear you.
Okay, thanks. Better this way? Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Ja, viel besser.
Okay, then now we'll get started. And I welcome you again on how to design a decent user interface. I study computer science, and I'm currently specializing in the field of usability, interaction design, human-computer interaction, whatever you want to call it. And I want you to switch your perspective, which I assume is the one of a developer. So this is who of you is a developer / programmer? Like, you know, well, yeah, that's kind of what I expected. So, first the manual. To quickly find out whether this is a good example or a bad example, I mark them with a plus or a minus. And I want to point out that the applications that I choose as examples, they're not particularly worse than other applications. They just happen to be around when I look for examples. So it could have been anyone. This is the table of contents. We will look at reasons for poor user interfaces, why you should walk the extra mile and do it right, how you can do it right, some tips, and we will look at common factors for users as human beings and for users as individuals, and we'll take a dive into user-centered design, do a short sum up, and some hints on when I hope that I'll make you curious how you can find out more. But a quick detour, just to make sure that we are talking about the same thing here. What is a poor UI anyway? So users, usually they have a task, something that they want to accomplish with a computer or with your application, and they want to get it done. And each time your application they can't figure out what to do, where to find that option, they are disturbed, and it breaks their workflow. They can't think about what they actually want to do. And that's basically a poor user interface, sorry. And I want to give you one example, which has several factors. This is a searching interface for a library. It's web-based. And actually the library that is from is very, very good, just the search interface is bad. You have to figure out for the machine what is the author of the book, what is the title, abbreviations, what is a publishing house. So you have to distinguish for the machine when you enter the data. And better would be like Amazon does. You can just dump anything that comes into your mind about the special book. Whatever it is, you just dump it, and usually they find something. So the machine relieves me of this workload. I don't have to think for it. The second thing that is flawed with this example is that it has the wrong flow. The first time I used it, I entered all that data, and I was looking for a button, because this is the end of the page. And I was like, hey, where's the search button? It's web-based, so I assumed this was the navigation, but it's not. Here it's where it says search. And I am from a Western cultural background. This is a cultural thing. And for us, we write from left to right, from top to bottom. And if it goes from right to left, this is not the natural flow for our culture. And this is something you can easily avoid if you know about it. And the third thing and last thing that is flawed with the example is that they use jargon. In the search parameters that you can specify, it says here Titel, Stichworte, and Schlagworte. If you are an English speaker and you'd ask me to translate Stichworte and Schlagworte, I'd say keyword for both of them. So I have basically no idea where's the difference. I guess in the back of my mind, I think it's a librarian term, and there is actually a difference for a librarian. So in this example, there jargon slipped in from the library, from the client who gave the Auftrag.
Contract.
Thanks. You get the contract for this search interface. Jargon is always bad, as the only jargon that is okay in an application or any environment. A lot of what I'm saying today is applicable to other things, not only user interfaces. The only jargon that is okay is the jargon that makes sense to the user, which is usually from the so-called task domain. So if it's video editing, it's okay for you to use highly sophisticated, if it's for video editing experts, to use jargon from that area. But it's not okay to let slip in things from your area. So this is actually quite seldom that it's jargon from the client. What is really, really usual is that it's computer jargon. Things like UTF-8 suddenly popping up, but to most average users doesn't say anything. Things like that. And I'll come to it again later. We should avoid to let our computer jargon slip in, and the client's jargon as well, as it happened here. So now we get to the actual part, and we'll first look at some reasons. I mean, you're developers, you might know some of them. There are many bad applications and user interfaces out there, and I guess it's not because developers around the world get up in the morning and make an oath to themselves, today I will design an application with a user interface so crappy, no one, not even I, will be able to operate it. Is it the Nord? More like it. So, first one to go is lack of awareness. There's a huge gap in computer experience from those who use applications and those who program it, which is us. And we often assume and use terms that don't make sense to others around our little bubble of computer perfect world. And it's also the case that developers often think they know what users want, because when they design the UI, for a minute they slap on their user's head and they try to think like the user. I think most people do that effort, but it doesn't work out because we are far from average users. We are usually people who want to configure like everything. Normal people don't. Things like that, they're a huge difference, and we need to be aware of them. If we can only keep that in mind, this is already an improvement. And this is worse because with each project you're in, this is not solely for computers. You develop an inside perspective. You are inside and you think about it all the time, and for 3 weeks now your brain is digesting that. And with that inside perspective, it is very hard to take a step back and look at your application with an outsider's eye. And my message is, you can't do it. You really need someone from the outside to do it. Second one, this is closely related to the first one, is that there's hardly any training. In universities and I think companies as well, there are only few courses. So, I mean, where's the awareness to come from if nobody teaches it? That's why the one who has to program the user interface is often the one who ends up designing it. But designing a UI and programming it are different tasks. You may be a goddess in Qt, can program everything, but that doesn't mean you have a notion about how humans tick, how users tick, how to do it right. And yeah, you need different people, different expertise to do the both things. Oh yeah, that's a nice one. We as computer people tend to like or prefer deterministic things, like numbers and facts, and I can run a benchmark and then I can say algorithm A is faster than algorithm B. But people are fuzzy. We are not that easily put into categories, and we differ. And it's less clear often, and it's also about trade-offs. So if you improve one thing, for example, you make it easier for the expert, then you make it harder for the beginner sometimes. Or if you increase the font to make it better for people that are hard of sight, who can't, who have bad sight, yeah, then you can't get as much on the screen as before. So it's about trade-offs, and we tend not to like that. Yeah, Pizza Man reality kicks in when it's about time and money. There's too few, and usability is seldomly a priority. So this is what we're going to do in the end if there's time and money, and there never is. And it wouldn't be, I mean, in the end it's too late. I'll come to it later. So, last thing, even if you know better, sometimes the client or management or marketing comes to you and tells you, no, we want the button blinking. More bells and whistles. And you know exactly this will worsen the UI, but there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the saddest part. These are some of the reasons. Some of them are more valid than others. I think most of them you experienced at one point or the other. And I want to give you some incentives on why it's worth to do it right. The thing is, more and more people use computers that don't know anything about them, how they work internally. And while we might think we have already reached the peak, I think we didn't. This number will still increase. And that's okay. They don't even want to know about it. They have other things to do with the computer. And for them, the computer is only a tool. They use it to get things done. And I'm afraid for many of us it's also a hobby. You like to configure. You secretly enjoy configuring MPlayer after the Debian updates for 6 hours. And you're proud when you've reached it, when you succeeded. And
No.
You're not proud when you succeeded? So, yeah, I hope you get the point. Other people are not like us. And you have to put yourself into the user's place. Many of you are probably into open source software. You actually see the source code. An average user never sees the source code. The UI is the application. The judgment of the application is greatly based on the UI. And they never know that you've got like the cleanest code base in history and that your algorithm is so efficient and clever and you want to pat yourself on the back all the time for it. They'll never know. It's sad but true. And as we progress, as the IT branch, technology doesn't make that much of a difference anymore. Processors are fast enough and there's enough RAM, and for example efficiency with that resources isn't as important as it was. So other distinctions become more important, and one of these distinctions is usability. And as people or many projects neglected, that's your chance to stand out of the crowd. I mean, I think it would be kind of cool if the open source software would become famous for being the best usable software ever. So we can do it. Yeah, let's wrap it up. And we now, hope I incented you enough, so that you now want to do it right. You want to do it right. And users have one thing in common. They are humans, and humans have common frailties, common limitations. And there are still applications that just ignore that. And if we can take that into account, then we will already achieve a big improvement. That's like half of the way. And I want to look at those human factors. First block is timing. There are certain time intervals that are common to every human, and one of them is the perception of cause and effect. This is 100 milliseconds. Just like 1/10 of a second.